Hello my dear viewers and all kinds of students. How are you all? Hope you are actually doing a very crisis moment. You are spending a crisis moment of novel coronavirus at this very critical juncture of time. But I think you are not very much away from our virtual classes. So I would like to welcome you to my virtual lecture and hope you will enjoy it. Today's lecture is very much based on honors third year Department of English. I would like to talk about morphology, the part of linguistics, and it has been included in Introduction to Linguistics part. It was very important for you, I think. As I have already told my introduction, I have been teaching English at Victoria Government College, and my email number is given, so if you feel any kind of necessity, you can email me. Let's go to the lecture directly. Today's lecture is actually about morphology. So first of all, let us try to know what is morphology. And morphology is actually a very important chapter of Introduction to Linguistics. There are still a lot of chapters, but I think this is a really very important chapter for all the students because it will help you understand the structure of words and other necessary bits and bits of words and other important things about that. So let's see what are the definitions of morphology. Morphology is the branch of linguistics that studies the structure of words. It can also be called study of internal structure of words, or morphology in linguistics, the study of structure of the words and word formation. So what is word structure? Let's have a look at it. There are four basic elements of word structures in morphology. First one is morpheme. Next, free morpheme. It has been divided into two subsections, lexical and functional. Number 3, bound morpheme, which is also divided into inflectional and derivational morpheme. And number 4, which is very much uncommon to some viewers, contractible morpheme. Just at the way we contract the sentence or words, like I will becomes IL and I had become I apostrophe D. So there are 4 major sections of word structures. Now let's have a look at this slide. This is a very important slide because at a glance you can see the classification of morphemes. Morphemes are mainly divided into two sections, bound morpheme and free morphemes. Again, bound morpheme is divided into two sections, inflectional, derivational, and free morpheme is also again divided into two other sections, lexical and functional. So there are 4 main portions of morphemes that we have found here. Let's go to the next slide. This is a cloud presentation of morphology at a glance. If you divide morphology into two major sections, you can see at the right section reduced words and the left section morpheme. Reduced words means clipping, acronym, alphabetic abbreviation, which I will discuss my another slide another day. But morpheme today's lecture, it has been divided into some other subsections like free morpheme, bound morpheme. Bound morpheme is also divided into some other subsections like derivational morpheme, inflectional morpheme, stem and root. Okay, so this slide, morpheme, as I have already mentioned, there are two subsections, free and bound. So in a nutshell, I would like to let you know what is free morpheme. Those that can occur alone, the words that can occur alone, that can stand alone, and bound morpheme, those which cannot occur alone or which cannot occur alone independently. Let's see the example. A simple example, wool has only one free morpheme. It's a free morpheme because it is independent and separate, wool. And the same word can be transformed into woolen, but when you make it woolen, it is consisted of two morphemes like wool and yen. So there are two morphemes here, and so wool is the free morpheme, and yen, which is the last part of the word, suffix, is also called, it can be called a bound morpheme. Now have a look at free morpheme. A free morpheme is one that can be uttered alone with meaning, such as the words that we saw earlier, like book, table, bag, deliver, learn, pick. And all of these morphemes we call free morphemes because they can be used freely without the help of any other words. Bound morpheme. A bound morpheme cannot be uttered alone with meaning. It always added to one or other free morphemes, of course, to form a word. The following morphemes are taken from the previous example, like play become plays. So you add as, and as is the bound morpheme. So as cannot stand alone unless and until you use it or you attach it with play. Similarly, replay, lie or lee, cheaply, are, cheap are, unable, in, brighten. So some of them are prefix and some of them are suffixes, but all of them are actually bound morphemes. And if you look at this chart or this slide, you will see that all the bound morphemes are actually underlined and boldly given, so that you can very much easily identify them. Let's have a look at free and bound morpheme at one slide. So I have already discussed free morphemes can stand by themselves, like talk, open, tour, hunt, act, etc. And bound morphemes cannot stand alone and are usually tied to another morpheme, and they are all suffixes or prefixes in one word. They are called affixes. So all affixes are actually bound morpheme. Free morphemes are actually divided into two subclasses or subsections. First one is lexical morpheme and second one is functional morpheme. So what is lexical morpheme? Lexical morphemes are usually free morphemes. They carry their full meaning in the word itself. And for your kind information, if you look at the parts of speech, all the nouns, all the adjectives and all the verbs are actually, main verbs of course, are lexical morphemes or free morphemes. And the functional morphemes are words that bring a function inside of them. They assist lexical morphemes to add details to the meaning. So in parts of speech, conjunctions, prepositions, articles and pronunciations. But remember, they are not bound morphemes. This is the division that has come from free morpheme. So functional morphemes are all conjunctions that you find in English, all prepositions, all articles and all pronouns. They are also unchangeable, because you cannot change those words, like and cannot be changed, scenes cannot be changed, prepositions cannot be changed, article A and D cannot be changed, and pronouns of course cannot be changed. So functional morphemes are used to make function in the sentences. They assist lexical morphemes to add details to, for example, if you say book, it doesn't make sense of anything. If you say a book or the book, then it makes sense. So functional morpheme makes sense of lexical morpheme. Let's look at the next slide. Bound morphemes and derivation. Bound morphemes are again divided into two subsections, derivational and inflectional. So what is derivational? Derivational morphemes are affixes or suffixes and prefixes that are added to words to form new words. Like possible, if you add a prefix, it becomes impossible, or ity, if you add as a suffix, it becomes impossibility. So derivational morphemes are all suffixes and prefixes, which are called affixes. Very easy to understand. And inflectional morpheme, very important, are suffixes as in Sally's daughter, but not the suffixes like derivational morpheme. It makes grammatical, or it changes the grammatical sense of the sentence or words, like Sally's daughters, or I wanted it. So Sally's is Sally and then apostrophe. It means Sally belongs to some daughters. I wanted it, used as a past indefinite form of I want. So it makes a grammatical change in the sentence or words. They provide grammatical information about gender, number, person, case, degree or verb form. They're not used to change the grammatical category of a word. For example, I want it or I wanted it doesn't make any grammatical changes. One is in the present form, present indefinite form, and another is past indefinite form. So inflectional morpheme is very important, but I want to tell you that don't confuse it with derivational morpheme, because derivational morphemes are all suffixes and prefixes. But they are not suffixes and prefixes in that sense, because they make grammatical changes in the words. That is what you have to bear it in your mind very carefully. So let us have a look at the differences between derivational and inflectional morpheme. Dear viewers, there are some differences between inflectional and derivational morphemes. First, inflectional morphemes never change the grammatical category of a word. For example, tall and taller are both adjectives. They do not make any grammatical category because both of them are adjective. And the inflectional morpheme er, comparative form or comparative marker, simply produces different version of adjective, like tall and taller doesn't make the change of the words tall and taller and tallest. So it means that inflectional morpheme do not change the grammatical category of a word. However, derivational morphemes often change the part of speech of a word, like does the verb read becomes reader. When we add the derivational morpheme er, it is simply becomes reader. It is simply that read is a verb, but it is a noun. So there is a totally opposite grammatical changes. One is verb and another has become noun. However, some derivational morphemes do not change the grammatical category of a word. This is the exceptional case, like feel and refill. They are derivational, but they don't make any grammatical changes. For example, feel and refill, both of them are verb. Happy and unhappy, both of them are adjectives. So these are some little exceptions which you must also consider at your understanding. You can see now at a glance all the inflectional affixes which are still constant in English literature and linguistics. There are 8 of them. First one is s, which is used for third person singular number. Second one is in, used for progressive or participle. Ed, used for past tenses. En for past participle. S for plurals. Apostrophe s for positive cases. Er for comparative markers, and est for superlative degrees. So you can see some inflectional morphemes. These are 8 here in this chart, which can change the grammatical sense of the words. Like wait become waits, wait become waiting, wait become waited, eat becomes eaten, card become cards, dead become deads, tall becomes taller, weak become weakest. So these are, maybe there's some suffixes. Most of them are suffixes. All the suffixes, as I have already told you, all are suffixes, but these suffixes are used as inflection but not as the derivational morpheme, which you must keep it in your mind. Differences at a glance between derivational and inflectional morpheme. The derivational morphemes can change the grammatical category of a word. This is very important for you, that derivational morpheme can change the grammatical category of a word, creating an entirely new word. For example, alcohol is a noun. If you use IC, it becomes alcoholic and it becomes an adjective. So the grammatical category has been changed. Second one, inflectional morphemes never alter the grammatical category of a word. Like she waits at home and she waited at home. So waits here, inflectional morpheme, and waited in the second sentence has been changed to another inflectional morpheme, but it didn't make any grammatical changes. For example, the first one is present indefinite form and the second one is in the past indefinite form. Let us have a look at some derivational morphemes at a glance now. IC becomes noun, how noun becomes adjective by adding a derivational morpheme, like alcohol become alcoholic, clear become clearance, exact exactly, active activity, read readable, friend friendship, cover recover, definite indefinite. So these are the examples of some derivational morphemes which can change the grammatical category of a word, like alcohol, when it becomes alcoholic, by adding IC, the main word, the root word noun becomes adjective. So it directly changes the parts of speech of a word. So it's very important. So derivational morpheme changes the parts of speech or grammatical category of a word. Now it's a very important sentence. I have shown you one sentence where all the morphemes can be found. Let's read the sentence. The child's wildness shocked the teachers. Look at that. D is the functional morpheme. Child, a lexical morpheme. Apostrophe S is an inflectional morpheme. Wild is an lexical or free morpheme. Ness is the derivational morpheme. Shock, lexical morpheme. Ed, which is used for past indefinite form, inflectional morpheme. D again, functional morpheme. Teacher, which is a lexical or free morpheme. R is the derivational morpheme, is the derivational morpheme, and last one is, that is the plural of teacher, teachers, is an inflectional morpheme. So you can see, dear viewers, in this sentence you will find all kinds of, all the major morphemes, like lexical, free and bound morphemes are given here. Free morpheme and bound morphemes are also divided into different subsections, like functional, derivational and inflectional. That's all for me. I think you have enjoyed watching the video lecture, that is virtual lecture for you. If you have enjoyed the lecture, you can let me know, or if you have anything you like to need more, you can also mail me, which I have already given at the first slide of my presentation. So don't hesitate to let me know what you have learned from this lecture. I hope you will enjoy watching it and you will practice these sort of things at your home. Stay safe and save lives.